It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
We don't want to have to lose control to show control, because that means we don't really have any control at all unless we pull out the big guns. And that's terrible for so many reasons.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, founder of happyfamilies.com.au, and the dad to 6 daughters who I share with my podcast partner and wife. I probably should say wife and podcast partner. It makes more sense if I put that first, doesn't it, hun?
Maybe, just a little.
My wife, Kylie, who also runs this podcast with me. Hello. It's so nice to be able to share this this conversation with you today about dad rage or parent rage. We came across an article recently in The Atlantic. I love the quality of the journalism in The Atlantic, and it was all about a guy, his name is Keith Gesson, who has written a book, Raising Rafi, the First 5 Years. Now, we haven't read the book, but the book is really an introspection. It's a memoir. A memoir talking about the first 5 years of raising this kid, and Keith Gesson highlights that he found himself getting cranky all the time. As a dad, constantly getting mad at his son and doing and saying things that doing and saying them in a way that he just couldn't believe.
Well, the author, Daniel Engbird, he just articulated so well. In former times, the definition of a man was he went to work every day, he worked with his muscles, he used his body, and he brought home a paycheck, and that was about it. He didn't really have a huge part to play in the role of parenting in general, unless mum said
it
was disciplinarian.
Wait until
Dad gets home.
Your dad gets home, and then Dad will get home, find out what the kids have done, and then it was Dad's duty almost to
dish it out.
Yeah, fly into a rage or stay calm and say, that's it, now I need to let you know what's going to happen to you because you did the wrong thing. The world's changed.
It really has, but what it means to be a man, and particularly what it means to be a father and what that looks like has been shifting for a number of years now, but there still isn't much clarity in what it looks like.
And I think that ties in with the broader conversation that, I like to ask people, how would you define masculinity? So what does it mean to be a man? When I say be a man, what does that mean? And I keep on getting the same stereotypical answers that I might have gotten in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. It's the same kind of stuff, that you're supposed to be strong, tough, stoic, brute strength kind of stuff. It's all about power and capacity. And I know that there are some enlightened people who will come up with some other ideas, but the more I think about what masculinity is, the more I think that people are confused by it. It's difficult. And that's why defining fatherhood, as it has gone through its significant transition over the last couple of decades, it confuses people. What's a dad supposed to do?
In the Pew Research Centre survey, they actually asked parents to describe whether or not being a parent was extremely important to them. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting in it was that 58% of women said that it was. So did 57% of men. There actually wasn't really a difference between men and women in that role of parental responsibility. Men still don't have clarity around it, and it really has an impact on their capacity to, I guess, work through the challenges as they come.
So a couple of things stood out to me as we were having a look at this, and this is the main reason that I want to discuss this. Gesson, the author of Raising Rafi, and the author of the overall Atlantic article are both making the same point, and that is that parenting is self-discovery.
I love that. I actually love that.
And I've been saying something similar, not quite so succinctly for years, and I've been saying that parenting isn't about your children, it's about you. You learn about who you are when you're a parent. But they said this, they said, you don't know anything about yourself until your baby gets older. And that's what happened with me. I know I've shared this story a lot, so I'll share the short version. But you went out one afternoon. I was exhausted. I was looking after the baby and our 3-year-old. The 3-year-old wouldn't have her nap. I lost the plot. It was that incident that literally led to you and I having a sit-down conversation where you highlighted that I was not a particularly good dad or husband for that matter. And I chose to leave my radio career, go back to school forever, like 8.5 years of full-time study, while we tried to keep our family growing and pay off a mortgage. And I got my degrees, plural, so that I could learn how to be a better dad. But it was all about my inability to be who I knew that I was supposed to be. And what I discovered through that is that self-discovery hurts. As I watched who I was becoming as a parent, I didn't like it. It was awful. It was hard. I was getting it so wrong. And those low points with the frustration and the exhaustion and the innate desire that I had and still have to use my power to get what I want when the kids aren't playing nice. It's horrible. It's just horrible. And so I wanted to share in this podcast a whole lot of things around anger management from both mums and dads, because dad rage and parent rage, it's a real thing. We get exhausted.
A key line in the Atlantic's article says parenthood unhinges people.
Yes.
And it's not gender related. It unhinges both mums and dads in this process. And that, like you said, that sense of self-discovery becomes quite unsettling for all of us.
But only if you're willing to do the self-discovery. I mean, some parents won't do that at all. They'll just say, my kids need to learn to listen. My kids need to do as they're told. I'm the unilateral arbiter. I'm the one who knows everything here. And this is just kids being ridiculous and frustrating and pathetic. But Kylie, I just think we discover so much about ourselves if we're willing to be introspective. We discover our impatience. We discover our finitude, the inability that we have to actually navigate some of these challenging situations. They all show up. I've got to share this. I mean, this was such a good article. We will link to it in the show notes. But yelling, it turns out, is a pretty gendered issue, according to an article in Fatherly's Official Guide to Anger Management. If testosterone can help you to throw a baseball harder, a child psychiatrist says, then it can also make you hurl your voice with greater volume and velocity, which is extra scary for a kid. It's not that mums don't yell, it's that fathers yell with more force. And I read that and it really, I mean, it socked me between the eyes, because I'll often hear parents say, the kids will always listen to their dad, but they won't listen to me. Mums say that all the time. And I've always kind of wondered, what is it about that? But there's something about the power that a dad has that a mum doesn't. And again, there are some mums who clearly do and who have a whole lot of it there. But it's the way that a father can hurl that voice, the adrenaline, the cortisol, the testosterone that are making the man so much stronger in the way that he shows up in frustration and anger at his kids.
But do you think part of that comes from that need to fit into the stereotype of what it is to be masculine, firstly, and secondly, that need that, generally speaking, males have to fix things?
It could be. Something that really struck me as I was working through this article was that we're exerting our control as we're losing it. And it's something that I talk to parents about all the time, is the more you have to show your kids that you're in control, the less in control you actually are.
Lost it, yeah.
And it seems that as parents, we just get so caught up in control, and we all get angry, mums and dads. But there seems to be something particularly, I'm going to use the word violent, something particularly extra strong about a dad's rage compared to a mum's rage that I think is concerning and scary. And we don't want to have to lose control to show control, because that means we don't really have any control at all unless we pull out the big guns. And that's terrible for so many reasons. Yelling backfires, it ruptures relationships, it undermines resilience, it increases anxiety and shame in our kids, and so many other things. So was there anything else from the article that you really wanted to highlight? Because I think, because this is the podcast for the time poor parent who wants answers, I think we need to talk about how we can find solutions to the rage that sometimes boils up inside us.
No, I think solutions are good.
Let's do that after the break. If you've got a teen, you're likely already worried about alcohol and drug use. As a parent, you want to know, how do we protect them? How do we teach them? How do we know if they're up to something? Pot, Pills and Parenting will equip and empower you to help your tweens and teens navigate one of the most challenging adolescent issues today. Available on the Happy Families webshop.
It's the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now. And I would love some solutions. How do we help with this rage?
Tips to tame anger. I'm going to share, 6 of them. I'll share 6 tips to tame anger. Number 1, the mantra. Do you know the mantra that I've been saying to myself now for nearly 20 years? Every time I start to get angry, those words that I repeat over and over and over again.
You can't make me angry.
No, that's not the one. But it is something that I teach the kids all the time. No, I remind myself to be calm and kind. But I don't say it out loud, which is why you didn't know the answer. But calm and kind. Practice a mantra that emphasizes what you want to be and repeat it when your fuse is burning. It helps you to get your motives right. And that way you get to focus more on connection than correction. So that's my first one. Just rebalance yourself, recenter yourself. I guess as an alternative, if you don't want to have a mantra, you might just breathe, pause, inhale.
Or walk out.
Or yeah. You know what? Walk out, get some nature into you, take some fresh air in, look at the sky, look at the trees, look at the grass, look at the moon, anything, so that you're not looking at your child in anger. It's the same kind of idea, calm and kind, or taking a beat, taking a moment, breathing. That's tip number 1.
What's number 2?
Speak softly. Because when we're getting angry, what happens is our thought process speeds up and the volume of our voice increases. Something remarkable happens if we can soften our voice. Our children are more likely to hear us rather than less likely. Like they switch off. They get too scared when we're yelling and screaming. But if we speak softly, they listen more closely and they do it without panicking because they're not in fear for their backside. They're not in fear for their Nintendo or for their iPad or whatever they think might get taken off them. Not that any parent who listens to this podcast would do that, but you know what I mean.
Number 3.
This is my favorite one. This is the psychological distancing tool that I talk about in some of my webinars, and I think I've done a podcast or 2 on these ideas. You might do this in a couple of ways. Number 1, speak to your angry self in the third person. So I might say to myself,
Kylie, I'm getting angry. Kylie, you're getting angry.
Kylie, you're starting to lose the... Yeah, but you would say that. I wouldn't say that to you because that's...
No, I'd say it to me. Kylie, I can tell you're really starting to get worked up.
Yeah, Kylie, you're starting to get really, really mad. Or Kylie, you know better than this. That's what I would say. It's like somebody outside of you is actually talking to you. And it kind of... Or another way of doing it is saying, Kylie, I'm beginning to notice that you're getting angry. And then you can laugh at yourself about how silly you seem, but you're stepping out. It's like you're an outside observer looking in on yourself and passing gentle judgment, not to shame yourself, but just to remind yourself that you're not quite living up to where you want to be.
Or you just do the fake smile in the mirror.
Yeah, that could work as well sometimes. Good luck with that, though, especially when you're getting really mad.
Number 4.
I love doing this. Adopt a mental mentor. So maybe you can picture a dad or a mum who absolutely nails their parenting every time. They're patient, they're compassionate.
They're immortal.
Yeah, maybe. But you can use that to channel them. Like you can channel your inner mental mentor or pretend that they're there, that they're present watching you in your imagination because you don't behave the same way when you've got an audience.
You know, no one is perfect all the time.
No, I know, but you don't know when they're not perfect. You've only seen them when they're perfect because you were seeing them. But
that's what I'm saying. You just need to be aware no one's perfect.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Number 5.
Do the opposite. So if you know that you're really angry and that you tend to do things that you're going to regret when you're angry, think about what the exact opposite of what you want to do is and do that. I want to yell at them. Okay, I should speak softly. I want to smack them. Okay, I should hug them or bring them close.
Okay, so who in their right mind is going to think that when they want to scream?
It's
because they're not in their right mind. That's the point, right?
Yeah,
You're not in your right mind. So how do you get to a point where you actually think that?
It's about practice, and it's about practicing it when you're not furious, when you're not losing it, but maybe you can start to feel the agitation. And so you get in early, you think, okay, I'm starting to feel agitated. What I'm inclined to do is this, but I know I'm going to be better off if I do this. I need to do the opposite. And I mean, I've told myself to do this hundreds of times over the years, and it's powerful the way it works.
I haven't used that specific tool, but for me, often it is just a remembrance of what I felt as a child in that situation and what I wished had have happened.
Yeah, beautiful. That's a great idea. Yes.
So my parents obviously they'd get angry, but what I really wanted them to do was tell me that it was okay, that it was just a mistake, and they understood that it wasn't.
That they loved you no matter what. And if you'd gotten that, what would you have done?
Just that feeling of safety and security.
Yeah.
And the reality is when you think about the things that drive us crazy about our children, they're never trying to make us angry.
Not usually. Every now and again they are, but not usually.
You know, they're excitable, they're inquisitive, they don't have the foresight that we have as adults or the experience.
They're tired and exhausted and overwhelmed and don't know how to deal with things.
And they just need to feel safe and secure.
Yeah, and your reaction, even as you share what you wish your parents had done, highlights just why this conversation matters so much. Because the shame and the anxiety and the ruptured relationships that are caused by our anger, they're long-lasting. You're in your 40s and you still feel that level of pain of little Kylie when she was when she was just a kid and not getting it. You could spin it around as well, Kylie, and look in the other direction. When I'm in my 70s and I've got my 30 or 40-year-old son or daughter sitting at the table with me, what do I want their reflections to be of those times where I could have lost it, but I didn't, or maybe those times where I did lose it? Like that mental time travel thing. You've gone backwards, I'm going forwards, but it's the same thing. It taps into those values and helps you to recognize what you need to do rather than get angry.
I love it. And number 6.
So this one's a really important one, and I've saved it for last, and it's this. You need to look after yourself and seek professional help when you need it. So spend time looking after your own mental health for your sake and for your kids. But if there is rage in your system, then there is work to do. Anger is a secondary emotion. It comes from somewhere else. It's usually masking something, often fear, often sadness, often stress. It's all of this stuff that we don't know what to do with properly. And we've got to do the inner work and know how to become emotionally literate and manage and regulate our own emotions in healthy and functional ways so that we don't start raging. If we can get it together ourselves, then we look on our children with compassion and kindness and we respond to their difficulty in such powerful ways. So those are my 6 tips for helping to tame our parental anger and rage. I hope this has been a helpful podcast. I hope that it's answered some questions for you and given you some useful ideas to think through. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon for Bridge Media with Craig Bruce as our executive producer. If you'd like more information about making your family happier, please visit us at happyfamilies.com.au. Tomorrow, an interview with Amantha Imber from How I Work, all about her brand new book. And on Thursday, a podcast that we cannot wait for. It's Book Club, again, where Kylie and I share with you the favourite books that we've read in the last month or thereabouts and what we've learned to make our families happier.